Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk bugle, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's being 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record button?
I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
And the podcast is also brought to you by OnX Maps. And with OnX Maps, you can know where you stand with the most accurate hunting GPS tech on the market with land ownership maps that work offline. Go to onxmaps.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 20% when you sign up for an app membership at onxmaps.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
We're also proud to partner with Sitka Gear, and if you go to sitkagear.com, you'll see their full line of clothing, and their tagline is turning clothing into gear, and they are doing that through advanced technology that allows you to stay in the field longer, hunt harder, and stay safer.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or BuglingBull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
And with that, Corey, we are ready to get into it.
All right, folks, welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And Randy and I are wrapping up what is today? Day 3?
They say it's day 2.
Day 2 for us.
Day 2, but I feel like I've been here a month.
Yeah, we're at the Western Conservation and Hunting Expo in Utah.
Yeah.
And it is Saturday evening, so we are exhausted. So we brought some youthful content to the podcast tonight.
Yeah.
And we have Mr. Ryan Lampers. And we have to mention that Hillary, his lovely wife, is tapped in with us. We didn't turn the microphone off. This last time Ryan and I did a podcast together, Brian Call turned Hillary's microphone off and gave her the headset and said, "You can listen."
What?
So she's over there
That was
like...
because he had just recently done a podcast with me on stress, and so I don't think he wanted me chiming in.
So as we're going, Ryan will say something, I can see him look out of the corner of his eye over at Hillary.
She's going to correct me.
Yeah. So we have Hillary's microphone turned on. So if you need to correct Ryan, you are free to do that.
I will be.
Brian,
my faults are going to get aired here, no doubt about it.
Your faults have already been aired. We have a podcast, remember?
True.
Yeah.
There is no way my wife and I could do a podcast together.
Yeah.
She used to work at my CPA firm when I first started it. It was kind of like a all hands on deck, trying to build it. And to this day, we argue whether she quit or she got fired.
Oh, my wife firmly says she got fired for insubordination.
Yeah. It was the fact that you guys can do that is really impressive.
Well, but I have another job that I go to, so it's not like it's my full-time job. We're trying to make it. We've tried, but we never worked together. We had a whole family together. Worked, and just in the last 2 years, we started doing this together, and there's definitely a learning curve.
So
no doubt about it.
With your other full-time job, can we call you Doc or Doctor?
Sure.
What,
That's fine.
Doc Hill.
Doc Hill?
Doc Hill.
Isn't that your Instagram handle?
Doc Hillary.
Doc Hillary.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So I can't fake any things about medicine or...
You can't even talk about Dairy Queen, Randy.
Hey, we have control of the microphone here. If we need to fake something, we will turn the microphone off and we'll fake it.
You know what? I love, Randy, that you talk about Dairy Queen, because when I was a kid, I went to the same Dairy Queen you did.
Really?
All the time.
Growing up in Bozeman, you went to the one on North 7th?
Well, it's covered now. You walk inside it, but you used to go outside, get your ice cream, sit there. Oh, yeah. We'd go there. We'd skip high school and go over to the Dairy Queen and get a Dairy Queen in the middle of winter when it was 20 below sometimes.
Yeah. I've tried to buy that Dairy Queen twice.
Oh,
Me and
really?
one of my CPA clients, who's an attorney, he's from the Midwest. He's got the same Dairy Queen problem. Whenever I see him, we meet by random. We meet at Dairy Queen, and because after dinner at like 7 o'clock, it's kind of like family thing. Go Dairy Queen in the summer, and Mike and I have decided we actually went into the Dairy Queen when the owner was there and said, we want to buy this if ever you put it up for sale. Oh yeah. Gave him our business cards. She sold the darn thing, and next time, a couple of years later, we're in there. It's like under new ownership. So we seek out the new owner. The new owner is from Minnesota. I'm like, well, I got an inside track here. I'm from Minnesota, and same gig. We tell this person we want to buy this Dairy Queen. It's like sold again.
Wow.
No kidding.
But it's probably not best to talk to the owner while you have blizzard dripping off your chin and say, we want to buy Dairy Queen.
But last week at Sheep Show in Reno, a guy comes up to me. He's like, I own 2 Dairy Queens. I own blah, blah, blah. He said, you are like the best ambassador Dairy Queen could have ever invented. He said, and my buddy in Twin Falls, Idaho is selling his franchise. I said, well, there's 2 of them there. He's like, you know that? I'm like, yeah, I know there's 2 of them in Twin Falls.
I've got the Randy app.
Yeah. He's like, well, I'll tell him if you're interested. I'm like, me and Mike are still in the search to own a Dairy Queen franchise. That's when we know we've made it in life, if we ever own a Dairy Queen franchise.
See, you're never satisfied, though.
No.
You got followed by Dairy Queen on Instagram. That should be the epitome.
It is. That's as realistically, that's far beyond where I expected my life would ever.
Wow.
And now you want to own a Dairy Queen. Then what?
I want to take Warren Buffett hunting.
I was going to say, just own Dairy Queen itself. Just go and be Mr. Dairy Queen.
Yeah, I bet you can get a blizzard machine and just put on your counter at home.
Oh, boy, that'd be bad. I'd be seeing Doc Hillary for sugar diabetes, obesity, you name it.
That is always the dilemma, right? Owning something like that.
Yeah.
Ryan and I actually years ago, we looked to own one of those Cold Creek ice cream places.
Cold Stone. Yeah.
They were first coming out, and we thought, wow, it looked like it was so successful. And I just told him, I just don't know if I could own something like that. Because I know I'm like making people like fat and sick. But it's a good idea. So there's like, that's the problem when you have too many like things around health. You sometimes think about that stuff. But.
Yeah.
So we don't want to get too far down that road.
Okay, enough from me.
This is the Elk Talk Podcast.
That's
so
right.
we actually invited Ryan to come on because Ryan hunts in a way that we want to learn to hunt like.
He's the ninja.
He is the ninja, the stealthy hunter.
Yeah, the stealthy. Stealthy.
Yes.
No. How do you pronounce that?
So we just say stealthy, but it's actually stealthy. And that was created by, of course, Doc Hillary.
Which is why we can't own a Dairy Queen ever.
Stealthy.
Well, if you had a friend who owned one, I always say about hunting dogs, you don't need one if you have a friend who has one.
That's right. Hunting dogs, trampolines, and swimming pools.
Yeah. Yep. Or fishing boats.
Or ski boats. Or a podcast.
So let's stay on the elk hunting track here.
Yep. So Ryan, just tell us a little bit of background. You and I and Ryan Carter, Brian Call, Jason Phelps did a podcast yesterday, talked a little bit about elk hunting. And
Some of our styles and strategies and whatnot,
And for me, it's all calling. And, Randy, I think, Randy's the late season guy. He's the guru when it comes to that.
Right.
But when we hunt archery, we call. When you hunt, it's like everything that lives and breathes is in danger because they don't know you're there.
I can't say I have one style of hunting. I love to do it the way you do it as well, and that's call and chase that one bull out there. That's his day, right? Just hitting ridges and screaming and locating and trying to find that hot bull. That is fun. It's a lot of fun. Certain times of the year, it's just, I don't know, sometimes it's not effective for me. So
totally.
Being in Montana now, I've come to really like that. It's not quite a post rut, but it's that October hunt.
Because for the listener, our archery season, did you see how late it stays open this year? Until October 20th.
The 20th.
So when's it open, like September 6th?
7th.
Yeah. So no, I've come to enjoy that hunt for a variety of reasons. I think number one is the woods clear out that time of year.
Yep.
Now, that can be one of the tougher times of the year to call bulls in, so you kind of have to vary your techniques, I guess.
Yeah.
That's, for me, that time of year has been great for spot and stalk. And, you just kind of have to direct your, where you're going to the type of terrain that lends itself to good spot and stalk hunting. Yeah. Montana's got a lot of that. So, I can't say I'm just do it one way. That was what was interesting yesterday is, making fun of Jason Phelps. I know his style and it works for him. Yeah. I'd say the only style that I really don't enjoy would be sitting at a water hole or tree stand or anything like that.
But would you do that to hunt a big elk?
I wouldn't.
Man, I never have had to, Corey. I do like to target one bull. It's almost like whatever it's going to take to get that bull, and that might be a extremely last resort. But that is not fun for me. It's just not as exciting as trying to find a hot bull and trying to eat. I would just as soon try to get in his path, from bedding area to whatever. And it's, I don't know, the sitting around at a water hole has just never appealed to me. It doesn't appeal to me with deer hunting. Anything really. So I'm too active. I'm too ADD for that.
I was just going to say, I don't have the patience to sit.
Before we move on, you said something there that every listener is going to say, all right, Ryan, what is good spot and stock terrain?
So, I would say an area that's got a lot of glassing. I've loved eastern Montana. It's one of my favorite places to hunt. It really lends itself to being able to pick out animals at long distances and kind of put a stock together. And now there's a lot of that in the western front as well. The last couple of years I've spent some time over there and found some areas where that time of year you find bigger groups of elk. There's a lot more cows. The bigger bulls tend to have a pretty good group of cows at that point. This year, for example, late season, I think I got over there about October, first week in October at some point. And man, nobody's out there. I'm being able to, hit a ridge, glass up bulls, glass up good numbers of elk, and then just basically put a spot and stock plan together and go for it. And that's worked really well. The last two bulls in Montana have been that style. Now, a lot of that has been, because I'm like you, I do like that first part of September up to the 10th or, 15th.
Yeah.
I feel like that time of year is really effective getting some of them really big bulls to come into the calls. After that, it gets a little frustrating. It's exciting. It's a lot of fun chasing bugles and trying to get in on them, but it can be a little frustrating at times.
So do you use calls at all during that October time frame?
I do, yeah.
For locating,
absolutely.
getting them talking?
Yep, locating them. Still going around at night and trying to pitch locators off ridges, and especially in new country. The last few years, I've really branched out away from Washington and just seeing brand new country.
Yeah.
So I'm learning a lot, learning these new areas, and so locating them in the dark has been really effective for me. It's kind of sucks in a way. You're up all night. You don't get much sleep, but it does tell you where you should be and where you should focus
October,
your efforts.
It's getting dark earlier.
Yeah.
So you do get a little bit more of that nighttime. But September, first part of September, it's like daylight till 10 o'clock. It's daylight at 5:45. And so if you're out for 3 hours at night trying to locate, you're getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, kind of like what I mentioned yesterday, I'm not the world's best caller, so I've just had to figure out ways of just making it work. Like my mentor was a guy in North Idaho that I learned from a long time ago. And he cut years and years and years of failing in the mountains off for me. And, he taught me, like, I remember sitting down at his house and he would show me videos of how bulls, what it takes to get bulls to actually come together and fight. And his philosophy was never cow call, ever. Leave the cow calls at home. Yeah. And his whole thing was fighting, getting them to come together. So there's a lot of like locating. There was a lot of branch breaking, raking, big sticks, trying to get bulls in that way, especially in North Idaho where, a lot of those bulls get hammered a lot and they hear a lot of calls. They hear a lot of cow calls.
From every logging road.
Every road. The diesel gets shut off and they hear cow calls within 5 seconds, So and they get smart to that. So his philosophy was that whatever it took to get those bulls to come together and breaking branches and popping sticks and, raking with big sticks. That's just been real effective for me. And we talked about that yesterday, and that's just one of the methods that's worked. But definitely, I just try to do whatever it takes besides sit at a water hole.
So you lived in Washington for how long?
My whole life up until this year. So 45 years. 45 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Yep. You married
I married
Doc Hillary from Montana.
Yes, from Montana, because I knew she was from the great state of Montana. I knew she was going to be a great lady. So, we met in Alaska so many years ago, and 22 years ago.
24 years ago.
So we've been married for 22 years, almost. So 24 years ago. Yeah.
Why'd you glance down at the microphone button?
I wanted to turn it off, so she can't correct me. There's going to be a lot of mistakes made by me.
So when you lived in Washington, did you hunt elk there a lot?
Yes.
Rosies,
so a lot of rosies, a lot of west side bulls. There's a couple years I hunted Rockies on the eastern front, but tags, Washington has kind of a different system. So you have to pick and choose your weapon choice. You have to pick and choose east or west. The only way you get around that is if you apply for a multi-season tag. And you have to apply to get that. They give so many multi-seasons. I think it's 500 per year for elk, 1,500 for deer. It's going to cost you 3 times the amount to get that tag. But that allows you to apply for those Rocky hunts on the eastern side of Washington. And also,
so like southeast, is that?
Yeah, the blues and all that. So what's kept me from hunting much on the east side is just that. I want to hunt big bulls every year or just mature bulls. And my only opportunity to do that is to hunt the western side. Because, it's like a 3-point minimum on that side in most units. So you can chase bulls every year over there and never have to worry about a season where, you're not going to hunt elk in Washington. So if I was to actually, specify east side tag for Washington, I would only, if I didn't draw, I would have the opportunity to go on some cow hunts or spike hunts. And there's very little opportunity for mature bulls.
So if you specify east side and don't draw, you don't get to go over the counter west side. You have to choose.
Right. You have to choose. And that has pushed me to hunt western Washington. And, completely different terrain. It's a lot thicker. If you're hunting the coast, it's a lot of rainforest, big cedars, old growth, stuff like that. We got some great bulls in Washington. But, the further up you get towards the crest, you've obviously got kind of have a mix of Rockies and Rosies, and they're kind of, both up there. So I don't know. I've spent probably 90% of my time on the western side of Washington and had great luck. It's been a lot of fun hunting that rainforest and jungle over there, but I really enjoy
Did you grow up elk hunting?
No, so I didn't. My dad, when I was growing up, I'm a lifelong hunter, but I did a lot of bird hunting, a lot of fishing. and more deer hunting than anything else. I didn't become an elk hunter until I would say I was 18, 19. And that's when I met up with old Dallas Blood, and he kind of showed me the ropes, shaved all those years. I stayed with this guy for like 3 weeks at one point, and we would go out every day. Just a salt of the earth type guy, worked at a mill. His wife was the mail lady. And I was guiding lakes, so I would guide places, Alaska, wherever. I'd come back. And I met this guy at one of my lakes. I'd show guys how to fly fish, how to fly cast and, whatever. And I'd stock these private lakes, and it was basically a pay-to-play type thing. So people would come to me, and I'd kind of teach them the ropes. And I met Dallas through that. He was trying to learn how to fly fish. And, I think when I met him, the guy was about 60 years old, and he was like one of the most fit guys I've ever met. So here's this 19-year-old, and then you got Dallas, who was 60, and he would stomp me in the mountains. His philosophy was the shortest, distance is a straight line. So there was no zigzagging up the mountain or anything like that. It was just get there. And no, he taught me so much in those years, and that's what I think a lot of people miss out and might get frustrated with when beginning elk hunters try to get into it. Is there's just such a learning curve. Yeah. And having a mentor, it's huge.
Yeah. So when you fail, it's important to fail, but it's also important to realize what went wrong and fix it. And I think without a mentor, a lot of times we're left failing and throwing our hands up because we don't know what we did wrong. We don't know why it didn't work, and it can get pretty frustrating pretty quickly.
Yeah. So having a teacher, we would go back at the end of the day after I would screw up all these hunts, in front of him. It got to the point where he thought, he taught me enough. He'd say, all right, how are you going to tackle this bull? Pitch a bugle. How are you going to get to that bull? What are you going to do? And I'd go do it, and I'd get back, walk of shame back, and I'd never work out. And then he'd tell me what I did wrong, like, going in screaming at a bull, pitching a bugle every 50 yards, why that didn't work. And so it was very educational for me. And then we'd go back at the end of the day, and we'd sit in his humble little North Idaho home, and we'd watch elk videos that he had taken, like Yellowstone National Park, just showing how bulls interact with each other and what it takes to, from the bugle fest to the scraping to the breaking of the brush to the view, and that after that point is when it all happened. So that was real interesting. I was very fortunate to kind of be mentored by a guy like that.
Very cool.
So,
wow. How do you spot and stalk hunt elk in northern Idaho, though, or in western Washington?
No, he did not teach me how to spot and stalk.
Okay.
That was some of the thickest country. It was real similar to Corey, your philosophy. It was a lot of calling and bugling, and
that's where I grew up, was North Idaho. So that's where I think that strategy comes from, is just getting the thick timber with them. You get aggressive and push the buttons till they come in, because they have to come in. You can't move in on an elk in North Idaho. Right. There's no slipping in on it in its bed.
No, none of that. No, you pretty much keep your binoculars in your truck or in your house. But
I never owned binoculars until I moved to Boise.
Really?
No, Dallas, and he got to the point where he wasn't even actually using a bugle. He was throat calling and whatnot, and he'd get a big fat tube and just use the tones in his throat. And he would work up all summer to get those tones right, to strengthen those cords in his throat to get the sounds right. It was really impressive, but he was that hardcore about elk hunting, and he just...
How far north? What part of North Idaho?
He was just north of Coeur d'Alene, so
way
south,
up there.
South end of Hayden there. Yeah. And he hunted all that country, the Coeur d'Alenes, all the way down through the Joe and into the Clearwater, but he tried to stay pretty close to that, Bonners and whatnot. So, nope.
That's, and honestly, it's like hunting the coastal.
Yeah, it is. Very
as
similar.
As far as terrain, and it's steep, it's rugged.
It's all about calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see the shame in Dallas's face if he had to break out a cow call.
Really?
He just wanted to stick with. He loved that adrenaline that he got when he picked the fight with the right bull and he came screaming in.
Yeah,
that was what he lived for.
So did you start out archery hunting, Ryan?
I did for elk.
For elk, yeah,
for
that's
elk.
what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Did you start out archery hunting for elk, Corey? See, I started out with the crutch of a rifle, and I don't think I'll ever be able to get rid of that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love chasing them with a bow, but they got a really good chance of escaping when I'm out there with a bow. And the reason I ask that is as I'm listening to the two of you, it seems so intuitive to you guys about things that elk are doing and how they're responding and reacting. And as someone who didn't grow up trying to get elk in this very intimate, short-range scenario, I'm always listening and learning, because I still feel today that it's always trial and error, but it's still way too much error for me when it comes to archery hunting.
Yeah.
Because I grew up as a rifle hunter.
Yeah.
Well, see, and I think, like, I grew up as an elk hunter from the beginning. I think someone who grows up as a deer hunter probably becomes a better elk hunter, because elk hunting, once you learn to rely on calls, it's easy. Like, I mean, I think elk hunting is easy. And I don't mean that from the terrain standpoint or anything, but as far as the strategy to call in an elk, it's not difficult. Like, it's just a process you do. And if you're in the terrain and everything's right, to call in a bull elk is not difficult.
Yeah. But it's more about putting yourself in the right position at the right time, being consistent, being able to stick it out, I think.
So I think that hasn't made me a good hunter. I can elk hunt, but when it comes to hunting other species, I would point to that guy and say he's the guy to go out and get camp meat tonight. Because if he's going to slip up on something and kill something, like he said earlier, you target one specific animal, I would hate to be that animal. If Ryan Lampers is targeting me, that's a place I don't want to be in life.
Yeah, I witnessed that almost firsthand last month in Arizona. So I've spent, me and my camera crew, dragging around southern Arizona probably a total of, well, before you got there, we'd probably spent a total of 12 days scaring deer away in Arizona. Ryan shows up, and I've never met him. He's like, seems like a good guy, and he's really not saying a whole lot. He's like, oh, I've never seen a coos deer before. I don't. And didn't you tell us you'd never been to Arizona?
I had never seen a cactus before.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I told you.
And I'm like, whoa, we've got a
He was actually sending me pictures of cactuses.
It's like, look at that.
Really? And so here's what's going through my head. I have no idea, his hunting background. And the very first night, we all come back to camp, and he's got pictures of bigger bucks that he'd taken through his phone scope than we'd seen in the previous 2 years of hunting down there. And then he tells us, I think he's killable. Next day, he comes back, he's got the rack of one of those. Was it one of the ones he had pictures of?
Yeah, it was. So I had found a really good buck, and that was in a spot that I just felt like if I stuck it out, I'd just hunt that specific buck, because he was a really nice buck. Not that I knew a whole lot about coos deer, but yeah, from what I had seen in photos and talked to people, that was a really nice buck.
Yeah.
So it ended up being a different buck, but I don't know how that one slipped away. But the one that I ended up getting moved into the small area where I was basically targeting that one, and that's the one I got. So the second night he comes in, he's not bringing pictures this time. He's bringing the proof. he's got a dead buck.
But I just heard something. You targeted a buck and shot a different one.
I did.
So, I mean, realistically, was that a successful hunt?
Total failure.
It was
a little bit of shame.
Crockett class.
A little bit of shame.
Deer.
With a bow, his second day of out doing it. Yeah. And so, needless to say, all the rest of us who were in camp, we're like, well, we're not going to top that one. So who's looking for the consolation prize here? Because we've all been doing this for years and never had any. I'm to the point where I'm trying to shoot what I call them Sonoran dicks. They're the
just a spike.
They're the little spikes that those little coos deer have about 1.5 inch spike. So I want to shoot one, but no. Here comes Ryan. Well, is this a good one? Everybody's like, oh my god. So
is that a mule deer?
Yeah. So I to your point, if Ryan says, I think I'm going to shoot one today, yeah, you can probably punch your tag in confidence.
So two questions to follow up with that. What led you to being a stealthy hunter? Like, I mean, the spot and stalk, just the animal assassin out there?
Oh, man. I don't know, Corey.
Because you didn't start hunting elk until you were 18 or 19.
No, but I'd hunted deer a lot, and birds a lot, and just love everything about the outdoors. And I've been really fortunate to spend a lot of time in the mountains. And whether it's been paying attention to animal behavior or whatever, trying to answer that is difficult. It's like, why does it end up happening?
Yeah.
Because my biggest, I want to be consistent, with everything, whether that's a bear hunt or a deer hunt or an elk hunt or anything. And it just seems like every hunt, there's things you have to figure out that are unique to that situation.
Yeah.
For example, talking about elk, it's like North Idaho, that's a calling situation. So, use every advantage you can to get those bulls to come in. The topography in Montana, whether it's sage flats or more open ridges, Quakies, aspens, you name it, that might lend itself more to, do more spot and stock. Right. It's going to be more effective for you.
It's difficult to call in that open terrain.
Yeah. And generally in that terrain, a lot of those bulls become call shy. So,
Explain to me call shy.
Call shy?
Yeah.
You make what you think is a good call and they go the other way.
So what causes...
It seems as if the places that get higher pressure, whether that, stick to Montana, for example, a lot of those eastern bulls, now I haven't spent a ton of time in eastern Montana chasing elk. I've only hunted that once, but I've hunted places that do get hit a lot, more of that open country. And it just seems like they've been chased for a while and they just know the calling. I don't know. I mean, maybe if it was Corey Jacobson making the calls and they had no idea it was a human, but they just seem to know. And it's frustrating because you think you make a perfect call, but it's almost like they're seeing right through you. Like that's a human. I'm going the other way. And yet when they're out there, they're still bugling. They're still doing their elk thing. But they just seem to know. And I have no idea why that is, but a lot more of that open terrain.
I was just going to say, do you think it's more a factor of the terrain than the pressure? I mean, is there truly more pressure in those areas, or is it just in that open terrain they can see, and if they don't see an elk, they know something's wrong?
That could be it for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've not spent a lot of time hunting in that terrain, but I hear it all, like the breaks and stuff in Montana. Everybody's like, I don't even take a bugle tube. Those elk are so call shy.
Yes.
But then I know people that hunt part of the breaks that's heavily timbered, and calling is off the charts there. Like elk will come run, big bulls, 350 bulls will come running to calls.
Right.
And so I don't know if it's more a matter of terrain, if it's pressure that they recognize that's a human bugle, or I don't have that answer.
I think every time I would start off, along the lines of how you start off, pitching bugles, trying to locate a hot bull. And if that's not working, it goes to plan B, and that's basically try to get in on the bulls that you're able to locate, whether it's through just a location bugle and trying to get in tight and having them make the mistake, or, putting them in a spot where you can get in on them and actually, get an arrow in them in their bed or whatnot. But it just changes, with the different types of terrain and how those elk are behaving, how they're acting to your calls. North Idaho, it's always the same. It's always find that hot bull, the one that's ready that specific day. He may not have been ready the day before, but you hit him again that next day with a hot cow, and it's like game on. And that has always been the most effective for North Idaho. But yeah.
And I can remember in college we would go out in North Idaho, and there's logging roads everywhere, and clear cuts and all that. So you'd go and we would drive until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And we'd get to a ridge, we'd hike down 100 or 200 yards, and we'd stand there for 40 minutes, and we'd bugle and wait 10 minutes, and we'd bugle and wait 10 minutes, and we'd bugle, and after 40 minutes, a bull would answer, just a weak, oh.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, there's a bull there. We'd spend the next 2 days, that weekend, hunting that bull and never get it. And any elk, any success we had came from an elk that answered us our first bugle. And we spent so much time chasing elk. We'd get locked on the first elk that bugled at us. After 40 minutes of trying, we would spend all of our time chasing him. And I don't know at what point it changed, but I realized those aren't the elk to chase.
No.
If you have to convince an elk in the dark to bugle after 40 minutes, this is pre-wolf.
Right.
He's not going to be fired up the next day to come into calls. And so Now we look for that hot bull that's just screaming and fired up that day.
Yeah.
And we'll walk by 10 others to get to that one.
Yeah, some of my best memories in Idaho when I was learning the ropes from Dallas was just that. We'd hit areas not too far off from those same logging rows that you're talking about. And, you get a call, but it's a lazy call. It's just not a fired up bull. And you try, you give it some time and hopefully they fire up and get them to stand up or something. But a lot of times they just don't.
Yeah.
But Dallas taught me that's like, and a lot of times he'd hunt just the first few hours in the morning, maybe up till about 10, which I've changed that strategy quite a bit since that. But I think most of my bulls have always come between that 10 and 2 range, 11 to 1 range. So not everything that Dallas taught me has held true.
Yeah.
But he gave me a real good outline. But he would hear a bull, and it'd just be a lazy call, like you said, just a moan or something like that. And he'd give it a little bit of time, maybe a half hour. And if it never did get excited, he'd say, well, we're going to come back tomorrow. We'll see how he reacts to this tomorrow. And I went back with him one time with his son. And it was probably the second or maybe the third or fourth day that we went back to that same bull and that same little drainage. And that morning, in the dark, of course, that first locator comes out, and that bull is lit up. And I mean on fire that day. He had a hot cow that day. And that was the day that Chad went down in there and killed that bull. And it was easy, like you said. That was an easy day to kill that bull.
Yep.
He didn't have to work at it. That bull was like, that was the day he was going to die. Yep. And he put himself down in the right position, got the wind right, and it was easy. Where I think a lot of people make the mistake of hearing that little bugle, like a lazy bugle, and they're just going to go for it no matter what. Yeah. And generally what happens is you end up pushing that bull out, and then you don't get another crack.
Well,
or
I think a lot of times, public land type stuff, you're excited to hear a bugle.
Yeah,
and even if it's
absolutely.
a lazy bugle, it's like, we got an elk bugle, we've got to make something happen here. And we say it all the time, we have to find the elk that wants to die today.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't want to die, meaning he's not fired up enough to drop his senses and come charging into a stinky human standing there with a plastic bugle, you probably aren't going to have a very good chance of killing him with calls.
And the other aspect to that, and I know why you're so fit, Corey, it's because that requires a lot of walking. Because you got to go find another bull that day that's hot, and sometimes that is more miles than many people are willing to put in to try to find that one bull. So I mean, I've seen you and how you do things, and it's very similar to how I would go about it in certain conditions, heavy timbered type conditions, and it's find that hot bull.
So are you competitive?
Am I competitive?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just when you said I find an animal, I target it and I kill it. Yeah. That's a competitive, not competitive with other hunters, but
sure.
You push yourself to be successful.
When you ask that, it's like I'd like to ask you a similar question. When you're out there, do you get a little bit stressed out? Like you're just working so hard. It almost is like it's not fun at a certain point. For me, I can attest to that. It's like if somebody was paying attention or standing, next to me during this, they'd almost think that I wasn't having fun at all, because it's like a chess match. You're just you're doing anything and everything you can to try to make that happen. Yep. And that's just running ridges and trying to find that one bull that day, and it almost looks as if you're not having fun. Yeah. But the fun comes once you put it all together and it works out. So.
Yeah, no, and I'm the same way. It's people always ask, is there a lot of pressure to be successful, with Elk 101 or different things? I'm like, no, not really. I put pressure on myself to be successful, not for anybody else. And it's kind of the same when I decide I want to hunt that bull, or that I need to call in that bull. He's hung up. I need to figure out a way to break him loose and get him into this setup. Yeah. I've already made my mind up. I'm going to shoot that bull. He might step out and be a 4-point. Yeah. But if he's given me a challenge, I accept that challenge, and it's not like I come to full draw and let him walk at that point. Right. Randy's looking at me with a skeptical look because I've probably let a couple elk walk when we hunted. But that was the first night of the first day of the hunt.
And the second night. and the third morning.
No,
and
we didn't even see that many elk.
we did too. We got video of that, Corey.
I've seen Corey in some videos letting some pretty nice bulls walk.
Yeah.
It's always first day, though. I mean, you look
It is.
at it, I'm not, and I had somebody the other day say, they left a comment on Instagram and said, I just watched your Arizona hunt that you released on YouTube, and I'm unfollowing you because I'm sick of watching spoiled brats pass up elk.
No, yeah.
And I thought, you don't understand. This is what I love to do. And if I go and fill my tag on the first day of any hunt, public land over the Roosevelt hunting on the coast, I will shoot a spike on the first day. That's different.
Yeah.
But any other hunt, I want to get 3 or 4 days of hunting in.
Absolutely.
I don't want to pack up and go home.
Yeah, I mean, you're competitive. You compete with yourself out there. You kind of set a goal. I really, really like to find a bull. It's one of my favorite things. It's like you get the most gratification if you give yourself a really, really hard situation. Like you find the biggest bull in that basin. And you kind of, to get to that bull, you're going to have to pass. You're going to have to avoid other bulls that may be a little bit easier. But the challenge you've laid out for yourself is you want that bull by the tones that he's making, whether it's a growl or he doesn't have tones anymore, or, he's just a growly old bull. That's the bull that you want. Yeah. And so, I totally understand that. It's a competition with yourself.
It is.
And it's such you can get so intense about it that I was just trying to, if somebody was right next to me, like if my wife was next to me during that kind of a scenario, she would think that I wasn't having fun. Yeah. But it's just a kind of an intensity about it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think it's an intent. It's not that we aren't having fun. It's just we're so intense in that situation that it's like, I've set my goal. Now I'm going to push and do everything I can do to be successful.
Right.
And it's so focused and so intense that when it does happen, you see the excitement then. We're excited, but up till that point, it's not like, oh gosh, this is a lot of fun. This bull, I'm working him, and it's just like focused in, zoned in, and
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing wrong.
Having too much fun, Randy.
I am.
You're chasing grouse. That's what you're doing wrong.
Well, that's more fun.
I'm gonna try to get grouse hunting banned during elk season, just so you can.
That's all right.
Focus
you go
on
right
elk.
Ahead. I'll just have to break the law if you're successful in getting it banned. No, I listened to you guys say that. It's another, I would say, distinction about people who come to elk hunting via archery. To me, when I'm out archery hunting, maybe it's because I'm on such a steep learning curve, I don't really have a frustration level. I expect everything to go wrong. So if something goes right, I'm like, holy cow, we got within 100 yards of that thing. How about that? Hot damn. And, occasionally I luck out and I shoot one. And, like, man, the planets aligned today. That guy, in fact, when you guys were saying that bull wanted to die today, for me to shoot one with a bow, that thing just had to want to die so bad. I mean, he was just sacrificial in his behaviors. But so it's interesting to listen to that conversation right there, because I don't feel any of that. To me, I'm just out there, and maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's just each person, we're all individually different. Maybe that's it. But I'm just out there usually.
Are you competitive?
Oh, yeah.
Like if somebody's in line in front of you for a blizzard?
Whatever. I'm very competitive. I don't like to lose, man. I just don't like to lose. But
so does that attitude, do you have that same attitude with an elk?
No, I don't. I don't know why. Mostly because hunting for me is I know it's an escape. It's a whole lot of other things. It's now you reach, I think it was about 5 to 8 years ago, I reached that point where I realized, there's a whole lot more hunts in the rearview mirror than there are in the front windshield. So, and I don't know how far the trail or the road ahead goes, but every one of those little trails that allow for an elk hunt or a day in the elk woods, I'm going to do, and I'm going to milk it, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I would say if you asked me that question 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, man, I did this elk hunt, I'm about ready to quit. I get so mad, so frustrated. Why do I even do this? And my wife would attest. I'd come home. She would tell me at times, why don't you just quit elk hunting for a few weeks, you know?
Take a break.
Yeah. So there was a time when I was that way, but now I'd say I'm not. No, someone else who's observing me might say completely different. Randy, I didn't know you were that intense, man.
Yeah. No, like the first time I hunted with you, and I know we talked about it for 4 or 5 years, and when I went hunting with you, it was a completely different atmosphere. I didn't care. In fact, it was one of the first times I didn't fill an elk tag in 20-some years of hunting on that hunt with you in Montana, but it was a blast. We went, we had fun. It was just, and I think it's important to have that. Because I think what happens a lot of times is you get so locked into that competitive atmosphere, you start competing with other hunters. And then it becomes a comparison of, I shot a bigger elk than him, or he shot a bigger elk than me. I've got to try harder next year. And that becomes the driving force and the purpose behind hunting, and it loses all its fun. And that's...
I got a question for you, Corey. I'm curious what you would say if... Like when you're going out there and you finally get that bull that you think, oh, that's a hot bull. I know you're probably pretty confident you're going to kill that bull. Like, how confident are you? Like, how many times when you find that one bull that's like, oh, that's the one right there. He sounds hot. How many times would you say it works out? So
the crazy thing and the cool thing about elk hunting is the second you gain confidence, the elk steal it from you. Every time that I go out there and think, this year I've practiced more with my bow, I'm in better shape, I'm doing everything, the elk don't stand a chance, I come back licking my wounds.
Humbled, yeah.
And that happened last year. I didn't fill an elk tag last year.
Yeah.
And I was ready for it. It was, elk are in trouble this year.
Now, were there times when you felt like that was the day? Like you found a bull that was his day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't work out. Yeah.
First day in Wyoming. Very first day, a bull from 450 yards away bugles. And the next time he bugled, he's 250 yards away. And I said, get ready to pack. That bull's dead. I mean, he's coming 200 yards to us. We haven't even done anything. He's coming in. It's his day to die. And I shot it 2 inches low. Hit the shoulder. And that literally is a difference between success on archery hunting. Sometimes is a couple inches. I was fully confident and everything happened the way it should, except for one small mistake I made. And that cost my season really.
Yeah.
And so, I think there are times based on the bull, I can tell we have a really high percentage of getting this bull into our setup. But the wind can switch at any time. Another hunter on public land can move in at any time. There's all these factors in the back of my mind. I never notch my tag before I walk up on the dead elk. So
yeah, for sure.
Never that confident.
I hope not.
And we joke about it. We'll get up there and there'll be this bull just screaming down in the canyon. We'll say, if we just notch our tag now, that bull's dead. He's that hot. We aren't saying it in arrogance like, oh, we're so good, we're going to go kill him. It's just that bull is so fired up that we probably should kill that elk.
Yeah. I think with a spot and stalk, you come across situations where when you find a bull out in an opening or in some basin or whatever, and it's like mule deer hunting. It's there's circumstances where you can pick out a buck or a bull in a spot where you're so confident. It's like in that spot, in these conditions, with the wind going that direction, I know I'm going to get to a spot where I can get that bull killed. And but with calling, it's never that confident. I never get that much confidence. I mean, there's a lot of times where you think, wow, that bull is hot. I'm going to have a shot at this bull. But sometimes it just doesn't work out.
See, I'm exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
With calling, I'm like, okay, 99% chance we're going to kill this elk. The setup's good. We've got good lanes. The wind's good. The terrain's perfect. The caller can be back over this rise. The bull's going to come right here. I'm going to shoot him right here.
Yeah.
And with spot and stalk, I'm like, gosh, that wind could switch at any time. I might step on a branch and break it. And, it's all these negatives that are like doubts when I'm trying to spot and stalk because that's not my strong suit.
Right. Now have you spot and stalked one bull in your life? I was forced to. New Mexico bull.
Yeah. And I've slipped in on elk in their beds before. They're bugling, have a buddy stay back and bugle, and slipped in and shot them. I've shadowed them, with the herd bull moving with his cows, and I've just moved in close and just stayed on him until he turned, and I've shot him that way. But to truly spot an elk in its bed, circle 180 degrees around the mountain, come in over the top behind it, and sit there in the sun and bake for 4 hours. Yeah, that was...
I got a spot for you, because where Corey killed that bull 3 years prior to that, or no, 4 years prior to that, I spot and stalked another one. But when you were saying, how you're like, okay, the wind is this, the conditions, I was sick as a dog. My liver was killing me, and I was about ready to cry and go home. And there's this bull out there with this big herd in this basin, and then this other bull underneath this shaded rock. I glassed him up. I told my camera guy, I said, let's go kill that bull. He's like, yeah, right. I'm like, no, we're going to come right around. The wind's perfect. We're going to step right up on this rock up above him, and we're going to shoot him. That bull read the script, man. He laid right there. I got up above him it'd be like me standing 6 feet above where you're at right now, and I had to stand there for 20 minutes. Because on TV at that time, when I was on TV, you couldn't shoot them in their bed.
Oh, right.
And so I'm just waiting and waiting. We can hear him panting. And we're right above him. We're exposed. We're skyline. Fortunately, he had a pedicle that was broke or something had happened. And so that antler on that side grew further out the front of his head. And so it was right over his eyeball.
Blocking his vision.
Yeah. And, but when I saw that bull bedded there, even if it wasn't for that, I was confident we were going to get a shot at him.
Yeah.
It's because everything about the conditions, the setup was perfect.
Yeah.
1 o'clock in the afternoon, he was laying on the deck.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost seems like, unless there's like a human interaction, like unless somebody comes in and messes it up. I don't know why, but I just feel a lot more confident on a spot and stalk.
Probably because you're in control. I mean, you really are. And that's, for me, I don't have patience. I make too many aggressive moves on spot and stalk when I should just lay back and wait for the right conditions. Like, I'm going to take a chance. The wind's blowing cross right now. I'm going to take a chance and get 20 more yards before it switches. Yeah. And I get caught halfway there and the wind switches. So, I mean, just little things that I take risks that when you spot and stalk, you've got to be more patient.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think I can't say it. I'm just going to say stealthy. The stealthy hunter. Do you think people get too impatient on whether it's a spot and stalk or, okay, I'm going to stalk into an area and let him come to me? You think they get too impatient? Is that the biggest reason they mess it up?
I mean, just for myself, I would say, the mistakes that I made early, my early hunts for spot and stalk, the mistakes are always made in those last like 50, 80 yards. And that's where people get impatient. You're so close. You're right there. Yeah, I mean, you almost got it, and you do something like you just get a little reckless at that point because you've got that far. And I think that's where it really, really pays to have a good patience game. Yeah. For example, that Coos deer this year. I mean, that was the whole strategy. There was to get in on that buck and wait him out, let him make the mistake. Because I know I couldn't get in tight on a Coos buck in that type of cover. It just wasn't going to happen. I could have tried, but my odds were probably going to be so low. And I would have had to have taken probably a longer shot than I was comfortable taking. So it was basically get in as tight as possible and let them make the mistake. And it's never a guarantee when, you're playing that game. But boy, it takes a lot of patience. Yeah. Knowing those bucks are just out of range, and all you got to do is do another 10 yards, 20 yards, and you got that shot. But that's usually where things get blown up and you mess up. Yeah. So, yeah. That's
like that bull in New Mexico. We got within 90 yards of it in 3 minutes. And then it was 4 hours to get a shot. And it's just, I think anybody can get inside, 100 or 150 yards on an elk, a mule deer, anything. But it's closing that gap and getting close enough for a shot. And like you said, it's very rare that you're going to be able to shoot an animal in its bed. It has to make the move. It has to step up, step into your lane, come 10 yards closer to you. Something has to happen. You're relying on that a little bit, but you have to put yourself in that position to allow that to happen. And for me, when that bull, I finally was like, I can't stay here any longer. My legs were asleep. I had my shoes off. They were 60 yards behind me. Everything there was pokey and sharp. I'm baking in 85-degree sun with a 20-mile-an-hour crosswind, just pounding the sun into the side of my face. And I'm like, I am done. I am out of every ounce of patience. I was exhausted physically and mentally. And I'm like, I'm just going to stand up and make something happen. So I laid back, drew my bow, and I stood up fully expecting that bull to just launch out of his bed and take off. And so I pulled back and I stepped up on him, and he just swung his head slow, and you could see his eyes get big. And he rose up about halfway, and they stopped and looked at me again and came all the way up. Well, in that time, I'm like trying to get my pin on him and moving up and down. I missed him the first shot, 25 yards. So I spent 4 hours getting in close to this bull, baked out there, and then missed a 25-yard shot. Unfortunately, I think he'd been sleeping that whole 4 hours.
A little
and he
groggy.
didn't. Yeah, he's like, what's going on? What's this guy doing? And he ran out to, 30 yards or something, stopped and looked back, and then I shot and made good on it.
That sounds like a mule deer hunt, like an early season mule deer hunt. Yeah, I'm assuming you probably aren't a big, like, early season mule deer.
I love November mule deer hunting.
November mule deer hunting. Because baking in the sun is par for the course in August, September mule deer hunting.
Yeah, and I'd love to do it more, but it's just that time of year is tough because I'm gearing up for elk season. I'm trying to maximize September, and so to take the first week of September and hunt mule deer is just not going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I do have 16 or 17 mule deer points in Colorado.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
How did you let that happen?
16 mule deer points in Oregon. I just don't know where to go, so I'm waiting.
You are in for a good hunt in Colorado, Corey. My goodness.
I talked to South Cox, and he's like, take your pick. You can probably draw any rifle hunt.
Yeah,
I'm like, I want an archery hunt.
Yeah.
Said, you can draw a good archery hunt with 2 points.
Yeah. We went into Colorado last year for the first time, and we've just put in on a 1-point unit, and we had a phenomenal hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Colorado. There's a lot of big bucks, and you're above timberline, and it's just real conducive to spot and stalk. But there is some baking in the sun, Corey.
12,000 feet. You're closer to the sun.
Thin air and a lot of sun.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm just soaking this all in. I'm taking notes. I'm as primarily a rifle hunter, and when I get to that 150-yard thing you guys were talking about, I don't have much to worry about after that.
Yeah.
I think everyone should host a podcast.
Why?
Because until we started Elk Talk Podcast, I had been a guest on probably 80 or 90 podcasts and talked about the same thing all the time. What's your style of hunting? And just in the handful of episodes we've done with guests on Elk Talk Podcast, I've become a better hunter. Talking with the guys this morning from Angry Spike Productions on Roosevelt hunting and picking up just a couple just minor tips that I think tip the scale. And then just Ryan inspires me to be a stealthy hunter. Yeah. I want to spot and stalk things because I know I am not a good hunter. I can hold my own elk hunting, but when it comes across the board to go out and say, we need camp meat, or you're providing for the village this week, I'm not that guy unless the elk season is September and it aligns right there. So.
And here comes Randy with his rifle.
Yeah. No, we gotta have a backup plan.
Yeah, that's true. But I really enjoy spot and stock hunting. So that same spot where Corey killed his, I killed one. The 2 years in between those hunts, I think those were 4 years apart.
Yeah.
A bull I had seen there with my nephew in a youth hunt 2 years prior, I thought it had a broken beam. So my nephew passed. It's really a long, big 6-point. Well, I'm out there 2 years later, same ridge. I'm like, that guy broke his beam again this year. Get the spotter out. He never had a pedicle on the left side. So he beds, and I got within 28 yards of him for a long time. But back to your point on how that last little bit, there's a cow bedded over to the left of me. And I'm thinking I can cheat a little bit and sneak forward. And I kind of thought she was around a pinyon tree where she couldn't see me. Well, I was wrong. But I think if I would have been patient, like you were saying, Ryan, and I would have just sat down there and waited it out, as the sun moved, that bull, he's between me and the cows. So it's not like I got to worry about the cows that are behind him. There's just one off to the left. Well, if I wouldn't have got my shorts in a bind, I would have just waited him out, because he would have stood up for the sun, or he would have heard a bull bugle, or another bull would have came walking across a further hillside, and I would have had a broadside shot at 28 yards.
Right.
No. Didn't end up.
You got to push the envelope.
Yeah.
Had to push the envelope. Yeah.
I have so much fun doing that. I really enjoy spot and stock hunting with the bow. And people ask me about mule deer hunting. I would way rather archery hunt mule deer than rifle hunt them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not even a question. And that's where I really get worked up about archery hunting. Well, don't get me wrong. I love when a bull comes in. That's a ton of fun. But I really love archery hunting when it's mule deer season.
Yeah. Yeah. I think mule deer hunting early season with a bow, I mean, that teaches you patience right there, right? To try to be consistent with that, you have to be patient, or you're just never going to get a shot. But and that's why I'm the opposite. I love the early season mule deer hunts in states like Colorado or Nevada. Washington has been really good for that. So I will actually miss some of my September to chase mule deer, and then hunt those bulls more when I can. And that's why right now I'm so stuck on this October Montana hunt. It's like the perfect time. I get to chase my mule deer in early season, whether that's August or September. And but I would love to hunt more those late season hunts with the rifle, and I've only done one in my life. I've got one bull under my belt with my rifle, and that was a Breaks bull quite a few years ago over in Montana. But that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was just getting up on those plateaus, and it felt like it was a needle in a haystack out there. So that was the challenge of just finding a bull out there. But that was one of, I'll always think real fondly of that hunt, just because the challenge wasn't, getting in tight or anything like that. It's just trying to find the best bull that you could find out in that type of broken country. And that was a lot of fun. But that's my only rifle experience, Randy. So I can't chime in on that.
I've only shot one elk with a rifle.
Jeez.
That'll change this year, though. Randy and I are going to go chase them in the snow.
Yeah, maybe Ryan should join us.
Yeah.
But he'll be
out.
tagged out.
He won't have Montana tagged by November.
No, I'll teach you how to scare them off with a rifle, too.
Perfect.
I mean, it's just as easy to mess it up with a rifle as it is with a bow.
Oh, I can only imagine.
But I excel at a lot of things that are failure.
Yeah.
I don't excel at a lot of things that are success. So occasionally one gets in the way, and we make it look good on TV. Thank goodness to the editing button. People think I get one every time, or I get into them every time. They just don't. We don't want to bore them with the 5 days before that where we walked around and didn't see anything, or called on our calls all day and didn't get a response.
Yeah.
So we did a piece on our New Mexico hunt last year. It was so hot. This was strictly in humor. Some people didn't see it as humor. We're driving down the road trying to do a piece for Nissan about my Nissan Titan. And Marcus, my camera guy, is sitting in the back seat on the passenger side, bugling and calling out the window, driving on Highway 60 outside of Daddle, New Mexico. And Michael is filming, and this is so crazy. There's two cows, cow out, standing off the side of the road. So we stopped, we found them. Because we're making fun of how hard it was to find them. And some people didn't see any humor in that at all. It was just a joke. But so that's what we do when we get to that frustration point. We go, dude, lighten something up. I did a NASCAR commercial on that hunt. And because I can feel myself starting to get to that stressed out point. And I just got to say, all right, I can feel it coming on, and I go do something that's stupid, or I go take a nap, or I do whatever, and then it's...
You go chase a grouse.
That's usually the fun part. And so for me, that hits the mental reset button of, all right, clean the slate, where are we at, let's assess here. All right, let's go do this.
Yeah.
And so...
I think I saw some of that in Arizona this year. You were... chasing coos, and then all of a sudden you were chasing javelina
and rabbits and anything.
I'm glad you did, because you cooked those up. They were delicious.
Yeah. Rabbits?
Oh man, Jackrabbits were about as good as meat can possibly be.
Ryan was the taste tester. Yeah.
Okay.
Corey doesn't look convinced.
I've smelled jackrabbit before.
No.
These antelope jackrabbit I had no idea. I'd never eaten one. And I was totally skeptical. And then Randy started cutting up this, like a backstrap that you would see on like a coos deer. It's this big old backstrap on this jackrabbit. And it was just like the highest quality meat that you've ever had.
What's an antelope jackrabbit? What's the difference?
It's a subspecies of the jackrabbits. Most of what we see are blacktails.
Yeah. And they're the ones that are covered in mites and full of...
Any rabbit can be. But these antelope jackrabbits, they can hit the scales at 12 pounds. They're like long.
And depending on how many mites and other diseases they have.
Whatever. I'm going to cook one for you, Corey, and you're not even going to know it's a jackrabbit.
I'll eat anything, but I just...
no, it's... I think... Now that I've got this grouse thing kind of moderated under control through a 12-step program from my doctor,
anybody that's telling you have your grouse problem under control,
but I might have to switch it over to jackrabbits. But no,
I like how you explain that though. Just hitting the reset button. He's going to use that every time he sees a grouse. I got to hit the reset button.
I'm hunting with Corey. I need a reset button.
No, for me, like I said earlier, and I hope it comes across that way with people who are with me or people who are watching or listening, that I am really there to enjoy the experience of what this natural world has to offer, because we can have our lives so occupied, so directed and contained by everything else around us. The one place I feel like I get to say how my day is going to be, how I get the sanity back, is when I'm out there. Just me and the woods and the whatever critter it is and the wind and the snow or the sun. And I know that's my therapy. That's life. That brings things back to where, man, this is a good day. What a country.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, my wife, she's right here. She could attest to that. I get frustrated with everything back home at times, and she's probably ready to kick me out of the house at certain points. I'm sure she has. But, when I come back from, a solo trip, successful or not, I'm always, it's like I hit the reset button. You just, you enjoy things more, and it's just kind of in a more state of calm after you've gone on a hunt like that and spent time in the mountains. So, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So when you've done all of your spot and stock elk hunting, is there, if we were to say, all right, Ryan, you get to pick this topography, this time of year, this setting, that you're going to continue being the stealthy hunter, what describe the perfect day and the perfect location?
Okay. For elk?
Yeah.
Yes. This is elk talk. We better talk. Yeah. Stick with elk.
Yeah, we'll get off the jackrabbits and coos deer.
I think what you look for in topography for spot and stock is a lot of cuts, a lot of folds, a lot of, rock ribbons and places where, they're going to bed up and you're going to have a shot to get in tight. So, I'm going to enjoy hunting the breaks country a lot. Yeah. I think that country just lends itself to spot and stock.
Do you like ribbons of timber, or do you like more open with...
Ribbons of timber, yes, somewhat, but I really like rocky type terrain. Sparse trees. Trees are nice. You can use trees for getting in on critters, but I do like that open stuff a lot more, and even just tall sage. This past season, for example, it was a spot that I would not have felt would have been great for spot and stock. If I'd have looked at Onyx and checked it out, I would have probably talked myself out of going there for spot and stock. But there was enough timber up top that I wanted to get up and get my calling in and just see where the elk were in their rut and all that. And it just so happened that I found most of the elk were down lower in the open, more sage type country. But fortunately, there were some ribbons of taller sage down there. And from a distance, just glassing these things, you just think it's impossible. There's no way I'm going to get in tight on that group, 50 cows and 2 bulls in there. It almost seemed impossible. But they happened to, I watched them for a long time, and they had this direction they were going. And I kind of put it together where if they go down and through this next swale, they're going to get to a point where I get a shot, because there's some tall sage over there. If I can get in there, I think they'll come through, and I can stay incognito down there. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, they put themselves in the spot, they all bedded down, and there just happened to be some nice tall sage. And I was able to get on the backside and come up that stuff. And I got to a point where I couldn't go any farther. And it was a long way. It was probably about an hour wait before that bull got. Now he didn't stay down very long. He was kind of moving around the cows, and he ended up coming to me and got to within 15 yards, and I got that shot. But it was just not the most ideal spot for spot and stalk. But I really like that cut, like coulee type country, junipers and rolls and cuts and folds.
He
and
would
stuff
love
like
your
that.
New Mexico area.
I know.
I mean, you can look as far as you want to see, and there are so many ridges with rock bluffs and cliffs and ribbons, and then one juniper tree out here and one pine tree over here, and just windswept grass, and then backside is just
sounds perfect.
So many elk material. Just while we were going in, we watched this elk go over the top of the ridge, drop off the backside, so we boogied around trying to get over there. Just in getting there, I don't know how many elk we bumped into in the draws between there that we didn't even know were around. Went clear around, and we're glassing down below us like he must have completely left the country. And we turn around, and 150 yards above us, we see antlers sticking up out of the grass there. Like we completely went past him. He's laying right there. And there's an element of fun.
Yeah.
It's
a different type of chess match.
It's different. Like sitting here talking about it, I would go and grab a bow and go and spot and stalk something right now. Sure. It's like exciting. But there in the moment, it's like, why won't he just bugle one time? Why won't he just bugle and we can call him in and be done with this nonsense instead of sitting here in the sun and baking and
Yeah. So time of year, if you had when archery seasons open in Nevada and Utah, August 15th-ish, somewhere in there, all the way to when it closes in Montana this year, October 20th, for spot and stalk, what time frame would you pick?
For spot and stalk, I would say the real early and the real late.
Okay.
The latter part of October, the middle part of October, when they're kind of coming off that rut. At least you can still get the vocals. You can kind of pick up where they're at. They're still talking a little bit. And the early part of the year, I think I haven't done a whole lot of the August type stuff, beginning of September and whatnot. But I think if I had to narrow it down, I'd say first and second week in October. They're still talking. They're still kind of showing themselves, and hopefully you're in the type of environment where you can get a stalk in on them. But last 2 years has been the same. It's been that second week, first to second week in October, and it's worked really well for spot and stalk. And the advantage of no people.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that extends opportunity. When you become a stealthy hunter, you get to hunt the rut in September and call. But you can spot and stalk for 2 weeks in August. You can spot and stalk in October. You can go to Arizona and spot and stalk in November, late season, in units like Unit 9 and Unit 10.
Shut up. But we're going to edit that part out.
No, this is like 4 months of elk hunting.
Wait a minute.
I didn't know existed.
I've been getting excited because I've been hearing Randy talk about Arizona and these late season hunts. I'm almost there with the point where that really excites me to go down and try that country. That November type.
You would love it, Brian. I've had early rifle hunts. So the archery hunts go right up to the day before. I mean, the late archery hunt ends, late rifle starts the next day. So they're right back to back. And I've been down there on some of those hunts scouting. And you run into guys with these late archery tags. And they're having lots of encounters. Yeah. And if you pick the right units, it's actually really good stalking country. There's a lot of sand. And these elk go bed out in these pinyon juniper flats, and they're pretty scattered. I watched the guy one time. I'm like, he's going to kill that thing. And it was so fun to watch. And I don't know what happened, but the bull got up. And it got up when he had a tree between him and the bull, and the bull got up and walked straight away. I don't know if the wind changed or whatever, but it was so exciting to watch this. And the number of elk you see on those late archery hunts in Arizona is a lot.
That's what I've heard.
It's a very target-rich environment.
Yeah.
I was telling you to shut up. Now you guys got me talking to spilling the beans here.
I've talked to some guys about that, real successful elk hunters, and they've fallen in love with that down there just because of, multiple stalks a day on bulls that are basically, moving a lot throughout the day, just trying to strap the feed bags on and get some of that fat back. Yep. So, no, that really excites me. I can't wait until I finally draw one of those late season tags.
See, and they aren't that hard to draw. We did the episode on Arizona, and there's some primo units you can draw with 3 and 4 points for archery late season hunt.
Yeah.
Dang. Which I'm sitting on 11 points going, I'm not burning them yet, but once I do, I'm going to be hunting late season.
If I don't draw a late rifle tag this year, I didn't do late archery because of my calendar already being messed up. But if I don't draw late rifle this year, I'm putting in for late archery next year. Yeah. I'm not even batting an eye. Yeah. I've been thinking about it since he came out with those seasons, and it's just more than the temptation is more than I can bear at this point.
Yeah.
To know that you're going to a place that's almost all public land, you're going to go there and you're going to hunt the same bull herds, the same age classes that everyone's hunting in the September. The fun in-your-face kind of archery hunts. And you're going to have way fewer hunters in the woods. That's everything. That checks all my boxes there.
Sign me up. Yeah, for sure. I'm excited because I'm right at that point where I'll probably draw next year. So I just got to go down and take that class. So I get one more.
So you can do it online and then just do the field day for a couple hours in person. So I have the online portion done. I have my certificate printed off. I just have to show up in Arizona and do the field day. And
if it's any enticement, in 2007, in January, I went down to Kingman. I took the class. You sit in there for 12 or 14 hours. The next 2 days, I shot limits of quail without a dog. I had a great time. And then I drew an Arizona strip mule deer tag that year because now I was in the max point pool.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I can't promise you'll draw an Arizona strip mule deer tag because you got to take it, but that's how it worked out for me.
Yeah, I kicked myself. I had mule deer points for the first 5 years, and I was just so focused on elk. So I started in 2001.
Yeah.
I would have 18 mule deer points right now. And my focus was either the kaibab or the strip.
I'm actually surprised you haven't gotten that class taken yet, Corey. Yeah. Mr. Elkin.
Yeah.
Surprises me.
I need to.
But you've hunted Arizona before.
All right. We are not, we're going to fold up this podcast if you don't have that class out of the way by this time next year.
Wow. Well, maybe while you guys are down Coos deer hunting, I'll go down and take the field day.
There's a class going on at the same time.
Perfect.
So,
I'll just go down for the field day and come back and eat jackrabbit at night.
You come on down. You'll probably just get to lick the plate.
Come on down.
If Ryan's there, between me and Ryan, that's about all that's going to be left there for you. So, I don't. They're flickering the lights here. What is that?
Yeah,
That
they're
means
closing down. 7 o'clock.
Really?
All right. Well, Ryan, tell us where others can find you and learn more, follow along.
Yeah, for sure. So my wife and I run Hunt Harvest Health, and obviously all the Instagram, Hunt Harvest Health, the Healthy Hunter, and that's about it.
And when you say Healthy Hunter, it's S-T-H.
Spell that.
S-T-H-E-A-L. Yeah, Stealthy.
Stealthy.
Yep, Stealthy.
Where can they get your podcast? Where can you pick that up at?
Hunt Harvest Health. So
.com.
We can get that on the website.
Yeah, we have a website, huntharvesthealth.com, iTunes, Stitcher, all those under Hunt Harvest Health.
Yeah. Right. And I remember one thing you said to me when we were down in Arizona, Randy, and it's like, how is it that you have a podcast? Because you don't say anything. Because I'm very quiet. But I said, well, I got a wife.
He talked me into doing it. I didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm busy, and no hunters want to hear what I have to say. And then he's like, no, I think you should do it with me because they really want to hear about that stuff. And then it's somehow turned into my podcast. So I just tell people, if you're getting too many health podcasts, it's because my husband's never home. He's out hunting. And so... sorry, it's now the Health podcast.
That's true.
Actually, truthfully, I mean, just this weekend, so many people coming out to us and just thanking us, and people saying, I don't want to listen to another hunting podcast. I want to listen to something different. So I was like, I guess people are getting value out of it, and this community needs it. And I've just felt really fortunate to have met so many amazing, cool people in the last 2 years, because 2 years ago, I could have cared less about hunting or hunters.
Really?
No.
Wow.
So I think it's been great for my growth, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I don't believe I said that. I think you should do it. I think hunters would benefit from you doing the podcast, and I think that's held true.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, great.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you for imparting your wisdom and making all of us better
I don't know how much
hunters.
wisdom there was there,
there's
but
wisdom
Dr.
there.
Hillary.
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
thank
so
you
much.
for letting me sit here and interject once in a while.
Yeah.
I
Keep
did
Ryan
good. I
straight.
kept my mouth
that
shut
was-
most of the time because I know nothing about this topic you're talking about. So I'm learning.
But if you want to
If
learn
I
about
ever
the
decided
ills
to
of
elk
Dairy Queen,
hunt, I
Randy,
would
Yeah.
know
she'll talk your ear off.
what I'm doing,
Really?
I think.
Can you tell Randy how Dairy Queen causes inflammation?
Sure.
We'll save that for another
Yeah,
podcast.
for
Yeah, we do that off air.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the world to know
How inflamed you are.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I'm a lot of things.
I almost went and bought some of those sugar-covered nuts that's all you smell in here
Yeah.
because they smell so good. And I was like, I don't know if I should sit down and eat a bunch of sugar-coated nuts as I'm talking about my health podcast. Again, it's the Dairy Queen curse.
I had willpower. I walked by that booth twice with my hand on my wallet thinking, it's a lot of money, but they smell so good.
Well,
And
you know what? It's actually the smell of the Hunt Expo. That's what I think of when I walk in here every year. It's like the smell of the Hunt Expo is
Honey,
cooking sugary.
cinnamon glazed.
Yes, nuts.
Well, I didn't know. I thought maybe that was someone's perfume or something.
Oh.
No.
Cinnamon sweet nut perfume.
Well, this podcast is deteriorating really
Yes,
quickly.
okay.
Ryan, Hillary, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank
Yeah.
you both.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks,
Folks,
Corey.
thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.